Hey everybody, welcome to Out of the Ordinary with Jay, and I am with Phil, and we're going to talk about, it goes by a number of names, but the most common name is called an earworm or earworms. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's a cousin of tinnitus, some people say. Some people call it music in the head, or 24 hours, 7 days a week music in the head. But basically the idea is, if you ever hear one of those, you're driving down the road, hear a snippet of a song on the radio, or you get home and then that sort of comes back, that little portion of that song over and over again for a while, and then maybe it leaves you and you don't have another one for about 3 weeks. That's what we're talking about today, is earworms and music in the head, except for there are some people that will have this basically 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where...
Well, not when I'm sleeping.
Right, where the music, there are some people that have it while sleeping.
Really?
But they say it affects,
Wow.
they can't sleep. They can hear it in dreams. Like, there's all kinds of stuff. But anyways, what we're basically talking about is where that snippet is constant and consistent and essentially never goes away. And I brought this up, and Phil told me that he's experienced this too. And another friend of mine that I just talked to a couple of days ago, he said he's had it his entire life and didn't know any different, just thought it was normal. But I didn't have such a thing except for the normal little earworms up until about 5 years ago, and then it turned into a 24/7 thing for me. And I'll just share with you my experience, and then we'll let you share yours. But I also have these weird things called, what I call intelligent earworms, or intelligent songs. And let me explain. This is how I first noticed I was having this phenomenon. First I noticed, I was like, damn, like, I can't get this song like out of my head. And it's been like days, and it's going into the night, and this is just constant. Where it happened for me is I was biking back from the gym,
Okay.
and it was super windy, right? And
The
wind is blowing me hard, right? So I'm working hard.
Bob Seger.
And at the same time, kind of. So at the you're getting there.
That's what would happen to me.
So at the same time I'm doing this wind thing, my inner monologue starts going, and instead of a song, I start thinking about change, and I'm like, man, I really don't like change. Why does everything have to change? Blah 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 blah. Scorpions, winds of change, right? And this happens to me now
great. I love it.
all the time, where now some song will come into my head, and if I go really examine it, 50% of the time I can find the reference point.
Mm-hmm.
50% of the time
Yeah.
I can find the reference points. Now, what say you? Have you had this sort of thing happen to you?
Oh yeah, I don't know if it's been all my life. I don't know how long this has been the case, but certainly at least the last 10, 20 years minimum.
Right.
I'd say all my life, my brain is always going. I'm talking to myself all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a constant dialogue in my head.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's probably most people. I know
Yeah.
my mother always told me that she
Yeah.
was, that there was a constant dialogue in her head. If I'm doing something repetitive, so if I'm engaged with someone,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm talking to you now, or if I'm paying attention to something
Mm-hmm.
else, if I'm listening to a speaker, if I'm watching the television, if I'm listening to something on the radio, then if I'm reading something online, or if I'm writing or whatever, then it's not going on.
Okay, so I'm the same way. If I'm focused,
Right.
there's no problem.
That's the word, focus.
Except for sometimes in the early stage, when this phenomenon really started hitting me hard, it would be distracting, and I'd have to close down the spreadsheet. I'm like, I can't concentrate. Like, you know what I mean? I couldn't. It was I don't know, relentless, and so it was actually semi-problematic for some period of time. Now I've managed to
Control it.
control it, and I guess, and it's really subdued itself. It's still there, but it's not as, the volume's not quite as
Right.
loud. It's not quite as relentless. But for a while there, I was like, whoa, this is tripping me out. Like, this is kind of affecting what I'm
Wow.
doing here.
Yeah, I've never had that problem where
Yeah.
I couldn't control it. If I was trying to focus on something, I could focus on something.
Yeah.
And yeah, I may get, maybe I'd be writing something and I'd kind of get stuck, and your mind starts to wander, and then a song would pop in your head. But I would still be able to focus on what I was doing. So for me, like I said, there's always a dialogue in my head, and if I'm not talking to myself, then usually there's a song in my head. Yeah, here comes the song. There's a jukebox in there, and it plays different songs all the time. And
Can Can you change the song?
Yeah, I can. Yeah,
Same
if I
here.
get if
Same
I get
here.
tired of a particular song, I'll say let's do something else, and I'll
Yeah.
just pick one out of the jukebox and
Same. That's
sing
the way
that.
that's the way I describe it too. Is the jukebox. I'm like, oh, not this. I'm not doing, Call Me Maybe. So give me something else, or whatever.
Right.
I like, and here it goes.
Right.
But
So if I'm walking home
Yeah.
from the gym and I'm walking into the wind, then against the wind.
sure,
So,
isn't that why?
watch the old
So
man running
there's the
against
smart.
wind.
So it's something where the brain's, it's drawing
You're-
an association because
right.
obviously it makes
Right.
complete sense.
Oh, I
It's
would
so
do
weird.
that to people when I was working. I'd be talking to people, and I would say something, or they would say something that would be a line from a song, and I would just start singing because it would just bring up the song in my head. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that in the middle of a meeting or
No,
anything, but a personal conversation, I would do that.
Yeah, no, that's one of the ways they say that is a way to like blunt them if you're disturbing you, is to play the song all the way through. Is one of those things. I don't know. A tip doesn't really work
No,
so
that
well for
doesn't-
me.
that does- no,
but
if
that's
I-
one of the things they've said. What's the longest
No.
period of time you've gone where you've had
Oh, wow.
it going? Like you have more than 15 minutes, an hour?
Oh yeah. Well, I don't
That's
know.
a long time.
The thing is, for instance, if I'm doing something repetitive, something that I do all the time, then there'll be music going if I'm not talking to myself. So, for example, when I'm walking to the gym, it's a 10-minute walk to the gym. Or if I'm hiking, if it's a hike that I've done 100 times, 1 hour, 2 hour hike, then I could have music going in my head the whole time when I'm not talking to myself.
Right.
And what's really interesting, I'd never really thought about this much until this morning when I was walking to the gym, and I paid attention, and I wasn't sure if, when I have a tune in my head, if I start thinking and talking to myself, does the music go away or does the music stay there? And what I discovered is that when I have a tune in my head, like this morning, I've been talking to this guy at the gym, trying to get him to listen to more Scorpions when he works out,
Okay.
because I love Scorpions.
How funny that I brought that up anyway.
Yeah, and so I've the last couple days I've had the song "The Zoo" in my head,
Yeah.
stuck in my head, and so I'm walking to the gym, and the zoo has a great beat, and so I had that song in my head, and then I started thinking about something and talking to myself, and I noticed, and then I stopped talking, and I picked up the song. Right, what I realized is the song never stopped. It kept going, but when I started thinking, it was like the volume went down,
Interesting.
and then when I stopped thinking, stopped talking to myself, the volume went back up, and I picked up right where,
Isn't that super interesting?
where it was, and the point where it was in the song. So the song was still going in the back,
Yes.
even though I was
Yeah,
thinking.
it was quite subdued while something else
Right.
came to the fore. So
Now, if I was
okay.
thinking really, really hard about something,
Yeah.
then the song would probably be gone.
Gone away.
But if it was just something like, oh, what am I going to, what time am I going to leave to meet Jason today at the park? Then that's not deep thinking. So the song stayed there. But if it was more involved,
something that required calculation or something. So I have to tell you real quick, so mine manifests itself, again, until only a few years ago, I would get a little snippet, much like anybody else would. Like I was familiar with, people would get them, and then they wouldn't have them for 3 weeks or a month or 2 months, and then they'd get a little tiny one, right? But then about 5 years ago, it started, and what's interesting is that happened when I quit working so much. I went from, hyper working 100 hours a
Right.
week to almost nothing, and so I feel like it came in to like fill the void.
Yeah.
Is my hypothesis. But what's interesting in my case is I used to be, you have the constant thoughts and the inner monologue you're talking about. I used to, and I didn't like this, but it would just happen. I would be what I would call a negative ruminator, and I didn't mean for that to happen. But I'll give you an example. If I went out to go walk my dogs,
yeah,
very happy time, loved my dogs, couldn't
Right.
wait to walk the dogs. As soon as I go and walk the dogs, I'm like, oh, this is such a great time, and look how happy they are. Oh, but maybe all dogs aren't that happy. Oh, I wonder if there's a stray dog in the neighborhood. Well, probability says there probably is. And then I would go from there to like, God, I wonder how many stray dogs are in this city, in this state, in the world. Oh my gosh, the amount of animal suffering going on right now, right? And my mind would just go there. But ever since the music in head has come in kind of full bore, almost zero negative rumination. It
Wow.
replaced it. It
Interesting.
replaced. What a trippy thing. So like in my case, as off-putting as this new thing was, as soon as I clicked, I was like, yeah, but I'm not having any of those other negative ruminating thoughts anymore. They just kind of pop in. I'm like, this is outstanding. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a weird thing. And then I went on to try to discover, like, what is this all about? Because I'd never heard of anybody else really having it 24/7 or having it very often like this. So I went to Reddit. I went to Quora. I posted on, and it's more common than you would think. And there's a lot of people that don't think that, they think it's just normal and you always have music going on. But one of the places that I thought was the most interesting was I found a forum on Facebook, which is an OCD forum, obsessive compulsive disorder. And I typed in there and said, hey, has anybody ever heard of this? And just bing, yep, me, bing, yep, me, bing, yep, me. And so it seems that clinical, I'm not talking like, oh, I have OCD. I'm talking about like people that, you know, would be clinically diagnosed with some, you know, higher spectrum of OCD. This seems to be more common in that realm. So just as an idea for anybody that's watching, you know, you're definitely not alone. And if you type in, you know, music in head or earworms or 24/7 earworms and stuff into Reddit or Quora or even Facebook, you'll find a community and a lot of people that are probably sharing virtually exactly what you have. And you know, many of them find it. There's some people that find it wildly off-putting and like it's so, the volume's so loud that it feels like it's going to drive them to an insane asylum. And then there's other people that are like, oh my gosh, I love it. And some of those people, at least from just anecdotally what I've seen, is there's a lot of, those seem to be more of the artistic folks, pretty artsy, that are, you know, have that going on. And so it's just kind of interesting. It's a full spectrum of things, but it's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
but, anyway,
for me, it doesn't bother me.
Doesn't bother you.
The thing is, I enjoy singing. The one thing I really missed from high school is when I was in high school, I was in the Glee Club. And I can't read a note of music, but I love music. Right, exactly. I love music. I love singing. You know, and so very often, if, like I said, walking to the gym or whatever, or just down the street, and I get a tune in my head, I'll hum it, I'll sing it. So, and as far as what tune gets you said playing the whole song will knock it out.
That's what they've said.
Oh
Some
no!
people say that.
If I
say
hear the
chewing
whole
gum,
if I hear the whole song, then it's really stuck.
Oh,
then I'm singing the whole song and especially if it has lyrics, and I'm singing all the lyrics. And the funny thing is, like, I'll leave the gym, and they'll be playing music there. That, like, for me, I'm all about 60s, 70s, and 80s. If it's after like Guns N' Roses, early 90s, I don't know what it is. So at the gym, they're playing more contemporary stuff.
Right.
So I'll hear songs at the gym, and I won't know who's singing it, but it'll have a catchy tune. And so whatever tune was playing in the gym when I left, almost always on the way home walking home from the gym, whatever that tune was will be in my head, and I won't even know what it is. But it happened this morning. It was I don't know what the song was, but the refrain just kept going through my head because it was in there.
Do you look at it as a net negative or a net positive that you have
positive.
this?
Yeah, I like it because like I said, I enjoy singing. So like I said, I'll just start singing or humming. You know, if I'm singing, it's not like I'm walking down the street. You know, I'm just quietly. I think
most of the research I've done on this, most people either think it's normal or a net positive. It's very few that have described it as a net negative once they understand what it is. And so on that, we're going to leave sort of a little bit of a pun. We're going to leave on a high note.
There you go.
All right. Thanks, Phil.